Hello and welcome to This Naked Chat, a podcast where six friends from different walks of life come together for honest, unscripted conversations about living alcohol-free and everything that comes with it. We all met at a live event hosted by Annie Grace of This Naked Mind in March of 2024. What started as a mastermind group with the six of us and Annie turned into some really deep friendships, filled with connection, tough conversations, and a lot of laughter. And after a year of growing and learning together, we realized that these conversations might help more than just us. So here we are, no scripts, just real talk. We are incredibly grateful to Annie and This Naked Mind for helping us get this off the ground and for the impact that her work has had on each of our lives. I am Brian, and I am joined by Kori, Agnes, Judi, Jenie, and Sammie. Let's dive in. So this is episode 6.
Wow.
And we finally have a name, I think, right? This Naked Chat.
That's us.
Affiliated with This Naked Mind. More to come later. How's everyone doing today?
So good.
Good.
Good? Lovely?
I don't know. I kind of have a sinusy thing going on today. It's really
Great.
pissing me off. But, you know.
Well, you look great. I like that setup of that room. Like I want to hang out in that room. All right.
Professional.
Same hat.
Big hat.
Same hat. Here we go.
Drum roll.
All right. Well, this is interesting. Kids and emotional intelligence.
Ooh.
Who was that? Agnes?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Who put this in? Anyone have any additional background on it?
Nope.
No. But it strikes so many thoughts. Because I just went to see Gabor Mate in Miami last week. So it really makes me think a lot about his work.
Well, go ahead. Agnes is the pro on this.
Oh, I don't know about the pro, besides digging into myself more than anything else. But, for emotional intelligence, that's being aware of exactly what your feelings are, embracing them and knowing where they're coming from and how to work through them and deal with it for yourself as well as others around you.
So there's an empathetic piece. I was seeing that in the definition of that, as well as the emotions of others. Is that the being able to recognize that same sort of a thing in someone else then?
Completely.
So yourself and, okay, interesting.
And I think it's also about centering oneself to be more responsive rather than reactive. I think, that's kind of a summary statement for me as to what it and
the awareness in general.
Yeah, and then being able to regulate yourself, capital S, if you're not in that responsive place, but are in that reactive place.
So this one said specifically kids and emotional intelligence, which we can go wherever we want with it. But Kori, was there something in the Gabor Mate presentation that made you tie it to kids, or was it?
Yeah, well, because his whole thing is about how so much happens to you as a kid that affects. I mean, whether it's big T trauma or little T trauma, that these things happen to you oftentimes without, you may not even have conscious memory of it, but that it impacts you, and without some emotional intelligence, you're kind of, as Jenie was saying, reactionary and not even having this awareness around it. He talks about how he was an infant. And he's from Hungary, and the Nazis invaded, and they were starving, essentially. So his mother gave him away to a stranger to try to save his life. And he doesn't have any conscious memory of that, but after, in his adulthood, he was able to go back and ask his mother about that time. And his, just the whole context, what was going on, and then also specifically about him and what happened to him, and a lot of the way that he reacted just out of, survival, right? At that age, it's literally, you just, only your little lizard brain is online, right? Your prefrontal cortex isn't online. You don't have any emotional intelligence. You're just reacting. And so he was able to glean a lot about how he reacts to, even to this day. I mean, he'll admit he's an 81-year-old man, and his reactions to things that happen, with his wife, for example, are absolutely reflective of what happened to him as a, 3-month-old, 6-month-old infant. And so it's really interesting how, if you have no emotional intelligence, that those things will you'll just be reacting your whole life and have no idea that why you're doing things. And I think his point was, you may not ever know exactly what happened to you because you don't really make conscious memories until you're, older than 3, but that having some awareness around it, about the fact of what you're doing, how you're reacting, is the important part, and being curious about it, instead of just reacting. That's
so interesting to me that he spoke on this. I admit I have not read his stuff for a while. But I only came to understand the magnitude of that kind of impact just within the last 2 or 3 years on me. I was born 10 weeks early in 1965 in a very small town in northwestern Minnesota that was very, very isolated. And I was in their, ad hoc NICU for about 7 weeks. And the town where I was in the NICU was 75 miles from where my parents lived. And they just, could not always get there every day. Plus, in a little incubator, right, with the feeding tube and all of that. I never understood, maybe a little bit, because it has multiple roots, but I never understood so much why I was always so anxious being separated from my parents.
Yep.
Separated from anybody close to me, and had nothing to do with, fear of death. It was more just this constant anxiety about being alone, in a very strange way. And I never really understood that likely is part of what happened to me, and that likely is where that's rooted. So to hear him put language to that also, that's very powerful for me to hear that. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
that jumps
100%.
that jumps on attachment theory, right? That's total attachment theory, that anxiety. Because I was born with spina bifida, right? I was miraculously healed, but I too in 1960, right? Not to age myself, anyways, because I am the senior here. Anyway, I too in 1960 spent a whole lot of time in the hospital, in pain, in whatever were my circumstances at the time, without my parents, because in those days parents weren't allowed.
Yep.
You had ad hoc staff, whoever. So the whole, attachment theory, of course you're going to have anxiety. I went through lots and lots and lots and lots of treatment for that, just to develop some kind of attaching to myself even. Right.
I hear a lot I have some of this too. We've talked about this even in the past episodes where, I had the eye patches and the surgeries on my skull, at months old and things like that. But I wonder, you hear a lot when it comes to emotional intelligence on it's something that needs to be taught in schools, right? Or something like that. And I know that would go over so well right now if someone were to introduce this concept to the United States. But I wonder where, to your point, I didn't know about any of this stuff until few years ago. And I don't know even what started that journey, but how do you introduce this, or maybe this is Agnes' question, not to put you on the spot, but I didn't know anything about it. And I was I think about it from specifically mine comes up from a sports perspective, and Jenie will appreciate this, but playing pickleball and tennis growing up, or not pickleball, tennis growing up, golf growing up, I would get pissed, anger, and display it. And no one ever said anything to me. It was just, they let me go. And it's carried over into my adult life. And now I learn, I'm like, well, you need a way to process it. It's just probably not that way, Bryant. You don't need to hurl your pickleball paddle at Jenie across the court. But there's so much to this.
What you just said is so interesting. I want Agnes to chime in. But on the sports thing, though, I would say sports has had emotional intelligence figured out way before the general public did. In sports, I mean, and the higher you go, the more in tune they are with the fact that emotion can drive your behavior and your performance. So they've used it, they've leveraged it, right? They've said, like, that's the whole thing about getting yourself amped up before a game and getting pissed, right? Like getting pissed at your opponent, you know, especially if they beat you before. Like, it's that they've used emotional intelligence, perhaps not in the way that we're thinking of, like in like having the space between, you know, action and reaction, but to amplify, right, your behavior and your performance. So,
well, and I think when you're playing golf, about the last thing you want to be doing is sitting in your emotions, taking your backswing. You just can't. And I have such admiration for the pros because that was that hole. Now let's move on. And when they can't or don't, it's so, you're right. The behavior changes, the backswing is different, and now they're out of bounds.
Yeah, there are some to Kori where it pays to get amped up and it will translate, but there are other precise sports where it's like if you take what had just happened into your next swing, it's just going to spiral down and down. And I see that myself. I'm like, if I get pissed on hole 2, and it can ruin my round.
So the way that I see it is first of all, everyone's afraid of emotions, and we're taught suppress your emotions as a child. So we go through those stories, right? You know, when Annie Grace has talked about it before too. In schools, you're taught don't have emotions, don't have feelings, competition, all this stuff as a child. Don't cry, don't do this. So we're already taught that to begin with. You become afraid of it because you're told not to do it. You're told not to feel, or you're told you're feeling the wrong things. No. And that's a big one. It's because, you know, you do something, you feel a certain way, you express it to somebody that makes them feel uncomfortable because now they have their emotions flooding in with, oh my God, I can't believe I did this to them. Oh, but all of this. So then it becomes a whole roller coaster ride. Whereas if everybody had their own awareness on their emotions and where it's stemming from, then again, less reactive, more responsive, and better decision making. And this goes across the board. So like for me, for the business world, for instance, you know, you have a coworker telling you something. If you don't understand why you're feeling something in your body when that's being said, and then you're going to react, you're going to take it personal, which can turn and not be productive. So I think it just all across, it's learning that emotions are okay. That's the first step, that it is, that they're okay and that we actually can get through them. Instead of also, those are bad emotions, those are good emotions. There is no bad or good because you can't get rid of any of them. Yeah. So we feel them all, we have them all. But again, those difficult ones that don't feel good for us, which again, certain ones may not feel good for me, but good for somebody else. You know, that includes even the positive ones the society says. To some people that doesn't feel good because they're not used to feeling happy. So again, how many times have you heard that? Oh my God, something bad's going to happen because things are going too good. I feel happy. Oh my God. Again. So it's a roller coaster. So it's like, we just have to be okay feeling it, but talking about it. But because everyone's so uncomfortable with emotions, that no one wants to talk about it because of how it makes them feel. And it just goes. And then the other part of it that I think is huge is, again, it's that when an emotion stirs up, again, is this your child self or is this your adult self? And again, this is one of those things that nobody wants to dig in, because it's like, I'm not going to therapy. I'm not bringing up the past. Everyone's so afraid of that. But if you understood where that was coming from, then again, you would make better informed decisions for yourself, because then you're reacting to it. And then you're beating yourself up if you're not happy with the choices that you made. And it's a vicious cycle. And I've got like two recent experiences of how I'm dealing with my emotions. And again, not running away, but feeling it. Last week, I discovered that I didn't really have much of a relationship with my father growing up, just because I was in Poland, he was in Canada. So I decided I'm going to reach out to him because I want to hear from him. How was his experience? How did he see me as a child? All of that. And he said that he doesn't want to go to the past. He's not interested. So we're not having that discussion. That brought up a lot of emotions of as a child. So again, because I'm not afraid of my emotions and because I'm actually trying to understand them and not run away from them, it brought me back into a child state. Like, my dad doesn't love me. My dad doesn't want me. I mean nothing. I'm worthless. I'm all of that. And I could have continued. I could have blamed him. I could have got angry with him. I could have went down that roller coaster ride. But I realized right now what I'm feeling is my little girl inside me. She has all the right to feel sad. Who wouldn't feel sad? That's okay. The adult, Agnes, knows he does love me. He's just not capable of dealing with his feelings. There's lots going on there, and I could guess what they are. But that doesn't mean he's a bad guy. That just means he's not there. And maybe, I hope to God he will be, and maybe not. But again, I need to deal with sitting in that feeling myself, that emotion, because I got to continue living my life too. There's so many different roads I could have taken. And it's like, I know as an adult, but it doesn't mean that I don't feel those deep child emotions. So this is where it goes back to that whole child. We are our child, that child, that we have that child inside of us all the time. And when we react, it tends to be, more cases than none, that child part of us that's reacting. So if we could understand, wow, where is that? Then we could work through it and then catch ourselves. And it's just awareness, because then you just catch that feeling coming up. So that way you could just make better, your actions end up being better. Right.
Well, that goes back to my question of how old do you feel right now? Right. When you had that whole conversation with your dad and that triggered that, you could sit and say, oh my gosh, how old do I feel right now? And then as an adult, you can think, all right, I feel 5 or I feel 6 or something. And then you can go back and you can give yourself some emotional intelligence around that, right? By allowing those feelings, understanding those feelings, holding those feelings, and allowing for healing in those feelings that you can smooth them out, right? And that's where the healing comes from. And good on you, Agnes, to sit in it. I mean, good on you to not run from it, because that's the only way. Yep. That's the only way to heal from stuff like that.
Again, this is a skill. We're not born with emotional intelligence. We're born with feelings. That's all we're born with. but we don't know what to do with all of those feelings. And that's where that skill is learned over time.
This episode is sponsored by The Path by This Naked Mind. It's a year-long program that combines expert guidance, daily support, and a connected community to help you take back control of your drinking so that you can wake up without regret, trust yourself again, and live a life that doesn't revolve around alcohol. Unlike the programs that focus on your behavior alone, The Path helps you eliminate the desire to drink using science-backed content, world-class coaching, and a compassionate community that really, truly gets it. So you can feel confident and in control of your relationship with alcohol without shame, without rules, and without missing out on the things that matter most. And in 2025, support is more accessible than ever before with live online coaching calls every hour on the hour from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Saturday. No matter where you are in the world or what your day looks like, support is always there, right in your back pocket. Learn more and start your path to freedom at nakedmindpath.com.
I think, and what you hit on there, Judi, with Agnes, and you discussed this, throughout the week a little bit with us about being able to sit with that feeling or those emotions is to me what so many maybe programs miss, where it's like, hey, especially the ones that connect thoughts to your feelings, to et cetera. And they're like, well, if you're feeling this change your thought, like you said, to be a more positive thought. And you're like, well, that isn't actually the answer, right? Instead of changing the thought to be like, I'm sad, I'm not sad. You're like, no. And I experienced this profoundly, like over the past, especially yesterday. So Mother's Day is tremendously hard for me. And I'm also at a point where I am feeling emotions more than I ever have in my life. And the answer there, especially coming out of my therapy appointment right into this call again, is to sit in that. And yesterday, that was really fucking terrible, right? It is really sad and lonely. And yet learning to do that, or recognizing that, stay there, do that, versus distracting and go somewhere else, seems to be that practice, right? Scary as shit, but
once you find the point of origin, right? That's the premise of the whole exercise. How old do you feel? Because you will know immediately, almost, how old you are, right? And once you get that, then you can analyze that from your intellect. Your adult intellect can look at that and say, and that's when Annie talks about when we go by and we think about those things and the meaning we had applied to those things as a child that we never graduated into adulthood. So if we can visit those again, we can look at it from a bigger perspective and say, just like Agnes did, she visited again. My dad's not a bad guy. He just couldn't go there. She could have hung on to the really hard little girl that was suffering in that moment, but she didn't. She looked and she said, all right, I'm going to sit here. It hurts. Yes. But truth is,
sitting in it without distraction is important to the extent that you're like trying to thoroughly feel it, right? And to really get to that, the origin or wherever you can get to with it. And like, because sometimes the misery that you're sitting in is of your own making, right? If you were sitting in this like, oh, my dad doesn't love me place, that I personally think that's not productive, right? Like, it's important to feel that and to hear yourself say that, and then to like get curious about, well, why do I think that? Why do I feel that? And what is really true? Not to just like languish in your own misery for the sake of that.
I understand the tracing it back, but there's another piece, especially, and this is specific to my situation and what I maybe see in a lot of men, is that they've never let themselves, this is even where that anger came in, right? They've never let themselves express that lower level of sadness or isolate. So you will isolate and things like that. So even before you go trace it back, maybe there's a step of like, can I just allow myself whatever that looks like? Like for me, I don't know, like, especially when it comes to my mom and the grief there, like I didn't necessarily allow myself to cry through that whole experience. So there's some grief that I haven't even gone through, right? But that's so uncomfortable for people, and I always use men because I'm a man. But for anyone to sit in that and be like, you know what? It feels like I'm going to cry, and instead of fighting it, let yourself fucking cry, right? Yeah. Or whatever. Throw a golf club at Jenny. That's not the right answer, but...
Yeah, but society with men, I mean, men have gotten the short stick. Right? Women are the emotional ones. Men are supposed to be tough. And, you know, I have a baby brother who raised with 3 older sisters and his mom. And even he is sensitive. We always say, oh, we trained him up right? Because he can sit in the women's with us in our estrogen, if you will. And he can sit and manage all that because he grew up in it. But even he has a super hard time expressing emotions because he's a guy. Guys aren't supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
but
the
who said that
masculine,
early?
but that's the makeup. So that's the blueprint of men and their genes and all of that. So they already have that. And then society on top of it, they've been trained that way. So the only way to break that is teaching young boys it's okay to cry. And this is where we stop it. And we don't allow them to cry, to be sad, to talk about how they feel. This is where, if they could learn that, because that is learning about their emotions. How is it that I'm feeling right now? It doesn't need to be difficult. Like, it doesn't have to be so complex. It could just be simple, just the awareness. It's learning about the awareness. That's really where it stems from. That's the beginning part.
But who brought up the, not to keep this on men only, who brought up the kind of stories that the women are told to uphold, though, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys have the same, I don't know that it's worse for men. It's completely different, but you're giving us a very strong set of standards as well, right?
And I was just, that's where I was going to go, is push back a little bit against this idea that it's gender specific, because in my professional world previously, let me tell you, it was so not gender specific. And if anything, the women with whom I worked, especially nurses, are concrete wall defended against emotion. And it is learned, it is necessary, and then it reaches a point where it's bad. And that trajectory is so common in healthcare. And from my perspective, the gender specificity doesn't exist. It's learned behavior across the board. I don't know.
Well, and to survive in the medical world with everything that everybody sees in the medical world, right? Sometimes you can't just specifically, you can't just shut off a slice of emotion. You either have them or you shut them all off. There's no in between. I mean, my medical friends, and that's why they would, so they work super hard, they shut off their emotions, and then they drink like crazy.
Yep.
Well, the other thing is so it's not females and males, but it's that masculine and feminine characteristic, which we all have that in our bodies, and it's whichever one is more of the dominant one. But I think that one of the real positive parts about exploring the awareness of our own emotions is that, when you recognize it in yourself, then again, like Annie's always talked about, you could see it. It's the reflection of others. You could see it in others. So when somebody is reacting to you, you can sit there and you can maybe understand or hold back or realize, if you know somebody well enough and you know they're all of a sudden reacting, then you could hold off and say, okay, you know what? They're not in the right headspace right now. Give them a little bit of time to calm down. Let's revisit this. So instead of taking it personal, what did I do wrong? And then it becomes fighting back. And this is where the communication. But I think that what that does for us, when we actually look at our emotional intelligence, it builds our confidence in ourselves. It actually makes us feel good in the long run, because then we're making better decisions again. We're communicating differently. Like, we're just doing life different, which then feels good for us. So we build that confidence. We give ourselves that confidence, and we can't get that from anybody else, only yourself. So the more that we practice it, we're feeling good about ourselves. Like, oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. I handled that well. Or, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't get upset over that, or whatever the case may be. And we also learn, oh, I could do this. I could do this. I could get through this feeling. I could get through this emotional, and the world's not falling apart on me. I could do hard things.
And there's a ripple effect, right? Because the change in you is noticed by those in your orbit. Whether or not they could tangibly put words to it, that's a different path. But it is noticed, and there is that profoundly lovely ripple effect.
As you were talking, Agnes, that especially in reaction to other people or to our kids, kind of to bring it back to that idea, and this idea that if we, taught our kids that it was okay to cry or to feel emotion, or if we, had that emotional intelligence related to another adult, right, and recognizing that they're sad or struggling or whatever. The other thing that I find as this like limitation is people like in their own minds, and this is kind of the liminal process that we all have to work through, right? Is like, we make it mean something, like if we do that, right? Like, oh my, if my kid, doesn't have a stiff upper lip or whatever, then, well, what will that mean? Or, if I show empathy to this person or this, or whatever, to anything, then what does that mean? It's such a bizarre thing that we do to ourselves, that like we just make this shit up in our head because, some of it's not totally made up. I get it. Like, very, our upbringing does it to it, society does it to us or whatever, but we're literally making things up about what this will mean if we like see the emotion in somebody else or, have compassion toward it.
Jenie, close your ears because this is a lobster related story, but my mom loved lobsters, and had like hundreds of them around her kitchen. And growing up in a small little, town in Illinois, we didn't have a tremendous amount of lobsters. So she loved Red Lobster. And I honestly, yesterday I was going to go to Red Lobster by myself as a way to just kind of remember. But to Kori's point, the thing that held me back is I knew that I was so like kind of emotional that I might have a fucking breakdown in Red Lobster. And that someone might be like, what the hell is wrong with that guy over there in the booth crying with his Lobster Fest meal? Were his hush puppies cold, or what was going on there? And it stopped me from doing that, from having that experience. So isn't that nuts? Mm-hmm. Like, that we're so afraid of I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but Brian, it's not.
That goes back to like a judgment. No, it's not.
It's not nuts. It's human, darling.
Yeah.
Right? It's
for sure.
It's just, all right, here's where I am right now. Next year, maybe you'll go.
But Red Lobster.
I'm going tomorrow. I might go today.
Red Lobster clearly needs to
right?
be removed from our sponsor list. I'm just saying.
It's so
the what?
Human. Red Lobster needs to now be removed from our sponsors list.
Oh, I want them on. I want to go get it today. They have a wonderful, yeah.
And like to Kori's point, don't make a meaning out of it, and making it okay. Like just, it's okay. I had the same thing. Yesterday, I could have cried the whole day. I made sure to hold in all my tears because I didn't want to see my kids cry. But that's all I wanted to do was cry. In church, I wanted to cry. At home, watching videos of the kids growing up. That was the first time that they actually saw it. And just watching all of my kids being born and everything. All I wanted to do was cry. And I held it in. So again, not going to make meaning of it. Not going to judge myself for it. That, you know what? It's okay. But I realized what I was doing, and I didn't beat myself up for it because you know what? I didn't want to cry, and that's okay too. I don't need to cry if I don't want to.
It's almost testing the depths of like what you're ready for, right? Like, you know, like,
Exactly.
like right now I can handle this, but I can't handle this. So I'm going to pull it right back to here. And that practice is maybe kind of hitting that more and more often or something like that.
Yeah. You'll get better at it. Better in the sense of you'll just feel more comfortable, or you're going to get whatever it is that you need out of it instead of making it wrong.
My takeaway, and I realized this maybe even before the call, but like I've been working for 4 or 5 years to get to the point I'm at right now to where I can actually feel this. I don't know that anyone would want to walk that because it sucks getting here. It's like, so like when we were talking about this naked part, like this feels as naked and as vulnerable as I've ever been in my life. And the only reason I was able to get here is because, I mean, partly you guys, partly, you know, the work that I've done to be able to say, okay, it's okay. This is what you were kind of working towards. And this is where the beauty, the joy starts or comes out of. But boy, that process, oof. And I mean, I'm still in it. Yep. I'm at the, who knows where this may get worse.
I hate to tell you, you're always going to be in it.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point. It's not like a dip. It's like, oh, this is what this is like. Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're just going to, oh, I won. I'm done.
Right.
That's it. I peaked, you know, I made it to the top. Nope. There's another peak.
It's almost like, it's like we experience life kind of like this, maybe. This is great for podcast content, but right. Like, you know, we even out our waves, right? But the waves are really great. And part of this exercise is being able to feel those up waves, bottom waves, you know, authentically, whatever that word is there. So you're right, Kori. It's like not to be like, okay, there was the bottom. That's as low as I'm ever going to get, because it's not true.
Well, we're also doing this as an adult. So again, if we tie it back to the children, if the children can start learning it at a younger age, their waves are not hopefully going to be as high and low as what we as adults are trying to figure it out. I'm 50 and trying to figure this shit out.
I can tell you this will never be taught in schools because parents will be afraid that their kids will be more mature than they are. So,
well, and that's where it goes back to. It's that almost like that generational break. It's like for someone to be able to break that generational pattern and all of that trauma and all of that, that is hard. That's a lot.
My husband and I in our life, a lot of former pretend kids who now have kids of their own. And some are school age, some not yet. In those families, the awareness of emotional intelligence teaching for toddlers by these parents is huge. And I mean, I didn't offer that because I didn't know about it. Even more specifically, my husband's daughter has a 4, almost 5-year-old. And the mastery he has of intense emotion is astonishing to witness. And it just gives me so much hope that these coming generations are really going to know so much more than I ever did. And like Agnes said, I feel like I'm just, starting out on this stuff. But watching some of these kids that we get to enjoy fairly frequently, it's like nothing I ever experienced. And I'm glad to have the prompt to think about them.
It's super, super real that we have to begin like with any intelligence, right? I mean, we have our little brain stem, then we have our layer of emotion, then we have our cognitive on top of that. That's why our brain stem. Anyway, but the sooner we can teach kids, and the sooner we can let kids have their emotions and accept them for their emotions, and move forward with their emotions, the better, because it's emotional health. Right? Like physical health, like mental health, like intellectual health. It's like a learning thing, and we have to move forward. And for those of us who didn't have those experiences for whatever reason, when we get to now to teach ourselves this emotional health, a lot of times it's always been helpful to me and to those I've worked with to tell them, don't be afraid of your emotions, because your subconscious won't release those emotions until you're ready to manage them. I mean, because the subconscious, as we teach, right, the unconscious wants you to survive, period. And that's where our cognitive dissonance comes from. Blah, 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 blah. If the subconscious doesn't allow it until you're ready to deal with it, there's no need to be afraid, because you will deal with it. And also to appreciate that, to Kori's point, it's not going to go away, because every layer we take off, there's a new layer. We're never going to get, well, we might, but I doubt that life is so complex. Humanity, we humans are so complex that every layer we take off, we're just going to get down to more and more and more and more until we get to that little teeny onion bulb, right? But that's okay, because every layer we take off, we're growing in emotional health. So it's scary, maybe. Yes, I've been through some real scary emotional stuff, because it gets visceral. You have panic attacks, you have this, you have that. You have anxiety that you don't know where it comes from. You get suicidal, you don't know why. You get all that stuff. And the good news is there are some people around that can help you walk.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point.
And sometimes even peek the door open, because sometimes that's all you can do is just peek the door open. But it's okay, because you're not, my takeaway from all of this conversation is, yes, we have to teach the children, and yes, we have to accept as adults that we're not destined forever to be in the mucka. We can work our way through the mucka.
And Judi, that's a good point to wrap on too, is that, like, I think for so long, at least for me, and I do see this in a lot of people, that they try to do it on their own. And that's really hard.
Yep.
You have to speak it. You have to take whatever's in the bottom of your heart, whatever is in that deep recess of your heart, you have to say it out loud.
Yep.
And it has to be with someone very safe. And it has to be with someone who can say, it's okay. I accept you. I can't fix it, but I accept you and I love you. And that's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a huge point to be like, whoever that is, boy, that's helped.
I mean, and we're called to be that for each other, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If something we said resonated, made you laugh, or made you think, we'd love it if you share it with someone who might need it too. And if you're curious about going alcohol-free or just ready to feel more connected to yourself, check out This Naked Mind. Annie's work brought us all together, and we're so grateful for the impact it's had. On that note, a big thank you to Annie Grace and This Naked Mind for making this podcast possible. We'll see you next time on This Naked Chat.